The movie begins at Ravenite with multiple shots popping off back to back from inside the building. There are already dead bodies around, and an officer comes rushing in with his gun up, but the movie doesn't even give a clean look at the shooter, just shadows. And then the movie cuts to Harbor Neuroscience, Hanover, New Hampshire, 1989, where Christian Wolff is a kid, and it's immediately obvious he's different. Because loud sounds, bright lights, and even simple touch overwhelm him. So he repeats words and phrases like he's trying to finish a loop in his head just to feel normal again. And a neurologist explains to his parents that what Christian is doing is self-stimulation, a coping mechanism, and that with support, structure, and a sensory-friendly environment, Christian can learn skills and still live a full life. And Christian's mother clearly wants to try that route, but Christian's father is Army, the kind of man who thinks the world is a hostile place and softness gets you killed. So when the doctor suggests Christian could stay for the summer in a supportive environment at no cost, the father shuts it down immediately and says if noise and light bother Christian, then he needs more exposure, not less, because the world won't adjust for him. Then the movie takes us to the present day in Plainfield, Illinois, where Christian Wolff is now an adult running a small strip mall office called ZZZ Accounting, and he meets clients like Frank and Dolores Rice, carefully going through their finances, asking detailed questions about the room Dolores uses for her beadwork, measuring its square footage, and calculating the exact tax deduction, and once the meeting is over, he slips straight back into his rigid daily routine where everything is timed, organized, and repeated with precision. And from the outside, Christian looks like the most ordinary guy in the world, a quiet accountant doing boring tax work for regular people. But while he quietly goes about his day, we cut to the U.S. Treasury Department, where Raymond King is about a month away from retirement, and he calls Treasury analyst Mary Beth Medina into his office, at first praising her work and suggesting she belongs in a much bigger role. But when Mary Beth tries to play it modest, King suddenly flips the tone and confronts her with a secret from her past, revealing she lied on her federal application, a felony that could have ended her career, and you can see it hit her immediately, as King reminds her that with one phone call he could end the career she's worked so hard to build. But instead of doing that, he offers her a deal, because he's been tracking a mysterious criminal known only as the Accountant, a financial genius who cleans the books for some of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world, and somehow never gets caught. And when Mary Beth asks what that has to do with her, King tells her that's now her assignment. She reports only to him, keeps the investigation strictly between the two of them, and has until he retires to uncover who the accountant really is. After giving Mary Beth the assignment, the movie cuts back to Christian arriving home from work, where we get a glimpse of what his daily routine really looks like. He prepares himself a simple meal, then cranks up deafening music while repeatedly rolling a wooden rod along his legs as part of his sensory routine. And just as quickly, the film flashes back to his childhood, where Christian's parents are arguing outside because his mother wants to leave. But the moment Christian becomes overwhelmed inside the house, his father abandons the argument and rushes in to comfort him, leaving his wife standing there alone and watching everything through the window. Christian's younger brother angrily gives his mother the middle finger, a final act that becomes the last straw, so she gets into the car and drives away, leaving her sons behind, while Christian's father remains inside comforting him, never even realizing she's gone. After that flashback ends, the movie snaps back to the present and shows Christian outside calmly practicing with a sniper rifle, aiming at watermelons from an incredible distance, and nearby his elderly client Frank watches through binoculars, convinced there's no way Christian makes the shot, but Christian hits all three targets dead on, leaving Frank speechless. And Christian just waves like it's another part of his day. Then he drives out to where he keeps his trailer, which doubles as his hidden safe house, stores the rifle away inside, turns on some music, and lies down on the bed. The movie then flashes back once again, this time to when Christian was in prison, where despite struggling to connect with most people, he unexpectedly forms a close friendship with another inmate named Francis Silverberg, a brilliant mathematician with ties to the Gambino crime family. And while the two spend their time solving complex puzzles, and Francis teaching Christian everything he knows about forensic accounting, while also giving him one piece of advice that would help him be safe in that kind of business that sticks with him for life. Never stay in one place too long, and only have one person you can trust. Then we come back to the present. We then see Christian speaking over an encrypted phone call with a mysterious woman known only as the Voice, who advises him to keep his head down for a while and avoid taking his usual high-risk clients before pointing him toward what appears to be nothing more than a routine accounting job at a reputable company called Robotics. But what seems like an ordinary audit soon pulls Christian into a deadly conspiracy far bigger than either of them expected. Christian heads to Robotics after being hired to look into discrepancies in the company's finances, where he meets junior accountant Dana Cummings, the employee who first noticed something wasn't adding up, and Dana tries to help right away. But Christian doesn't waste time on small talk. He asks for 15 years of financial records and locks himself away to work. and when Dana comes back the next morning expecting him to still be buried in paperwork, she walks in and freezes, because every wall is covered in calculations and timelines, and Christian has already followed the trail through the books and traced the leak to a fake company. Then he calmly drops the number out loud, more than $61 million missing, leaving Dana completely speechless. While Christian is talking with Dana, one of the executives steps into the room and immediately asks if he's figured out who took the money. But Christian refuses to guess, explaining that until he finishes the audit, he can't accuse anyone. So the executive backs off and quietly leaves. And then the movie shifts back to Mary Beth Medina, who's just beginning her own hunt for the mysterious man known only as the accountant. And she calls in a favor to obtain an old recording from the Ravenite case because the mob hideout had been bugged, but the audio is badly damaged and hard to understand. Until one thing cuts through clearly, the killer repeating Solomon Grundy over and over. So Mary Beth sends the recording to the FBI's language experts, who tell her the repetition is unnaturally consistent and could point to someone with a neurodevelopmental disorder, giving her a new lead. Then as she digs deeper into the files King gave her, she notices another pattern everyone else missed. Every alias linked to the accountant belongs to a famous mathematician, so she searches the Treasury and IRS databases for licensed accountants using those names. And one identity finally matches: Carl Gauss, leading her straight to a small strip mall office called ZZZ Accounting in Plainfield, Illinois. The movie then shifts back to Living Robotics, where Living Robotics' CFO, Ed Chilton, returns home that night, only to find a hitman named Brax already waiting in his living room, and after threatening to brutally murder his entire family, Brax gives Chilton a choice: inject himself with a fatal dose of insulin and let it look like a suicide so his family can collect the insurance money, or refuse and watch them all die instead, leaving Chilton with no choice but to sacrifice himself. And the next morning, Christian returns to Living Robotics expecting to finish the audit, but CEO Lamar Blackburn informs him that Chilton is dead, claiming he stole the money and took the truth with him, so the investigation is officially over, forcing Christian to walk away before he can uncover who was really behind the embezzlement. Unable to accept leaving a job unfinished, Christian returns to his motel room overwhelmed, struggling to regain control through his strict sensory routine. While behind the scenes, Lamar realizes both Christian and Dana know too much, so he quietly orders Brax and his team to eliminate them before the truth can come out. The hit squad quickly tracks Christian down to the secluded farm where he'd been practicing with his sniper rifle, using the elderly couple from earlier as bait to lure him into the open, expecting an easy kill. But everything goes horribly wrong, because Christian instantly transforms from a quiet accountant into a highly trained killer, taking out one of the gunmen with ruthless precision before capturing the other and demanding to know who sent them. But the mercenary admits he only knows they were ordered to eliminate Christian and then Dana, prompting Christian to immediately call the voice, who quickly helps him pinpoint Dana's location, sending him racing across town before the assassins can reach her. And Christian arrives at Dana's apartment just in time, taking down the entire hit team with ruthless efficiency, as Dana stands frozen in shock, finally realizing the quiet accountant she's been working with is far more dangerous than he appears. Then, after getting her out alive, Christian takes Dana to his secluded trailer to gather supplies, including cash, weapons, and other essentials, warning her to stay outside while he goes in, but curiosity gets the better of her, and she quietly steps inside anyway, discovering the trailer is actually a hidden safe house filled with weapons, stacks of cash, multiple identities, and priceless artwork, leaving her stunned as she begins to realize the double life Christian has been living. And after gathering the supplies he needs, Christian takes Dana to a luxury 5-star hotel, where, as Dana struggles to process everything she's seen, she demands to know who he really is and why people are trying to kill them. And Christian explains that under normal circumstances, he would have simply walked away the moment the audit was shut down. But after Ed Chilton was murdered and Dana became a target, he knew the missing money was only part of a much bigger conspiracy, and he then reveals that after following every transaction to its source, he pieced together that Living Robotics CEO Lamar Blackburn had been secretly stealing from his own company for years before framing Ed Chilton and having him killed to bury the truth, making Dana realize they're only being hunted because they uncovered what was never supposed to be found. While the movie cuts back to Mary Beth Medina, who arrives with Director King and a heavily armed FBI team to raid both the ZZZ accounting office and Christian's home she tracked down, only to discover they've arrived too late because every file, computer, and piece of furniture has already disappeared, leaving behind nothing that could identify Christian. And just when it seems like the investigation has reached a dead end, King finally reveals the secret he's been hiding for years, confessing that he was the terrified young officer who responded to the Ravenite massacre back in 2006. and that Christian was the mysterious gunman who wiped out the entire mob crew after they tortured and murdered his prison mentor, Francis Silverberg. But instead of killing King 2, Christian chose to spare his life. And ever since that night, a mysterious woman known only as the Voice has secretly been feeding King intelligence on criminals too powerful to be touched through normal investigations, allowing countless dangerous organizations to be taken down. And now that he's retiring, King tells Mary Beth she's the one he's chosen to replace him as the government's new point of contact with the Voice. But Mary Beth struggles to accept the responsibility because, despite everything she's learned, she still can't bring herself to see the accountant as anything other than a dangerous criminal. Then the movie shifts back to Christian, who leaves Dana safely hidden inside the hotel before driving off alone to finish what he started. And while he's on the road, his encrypted phone suddenly rings. It's the Voice, urging him to abandon the mission, disappear under a fresh identity, and do what he always does when a job burns to the ground. But Christian calmly refuses, explaining that he can't leave an unfinished task behind, especially now that innocent people have been murdered. So he ends the call and drives straight toward Lamar Blackburn's massive, heavily fortified mansion, where he quietly begins picking off the outer security before systematically fighting his way deeper into the estate, eliminating one heavily armed mercenary after another with the same cold precision that made him such a feared assassin, until he finally reaches the last man standing between himself and Lamar, the elite hitman known as Brax, only for the movie to deliver its biggest twist yet when Brax is revealed to be Braxton, Christian's younger brother, and after years apart, the two brothers are forced into a brutal hand-to-hand fight that neither of them truly wants to win, until Christian finally chooses to spare him, allowing the brothers to reconcile, and Braxton steps aside, clearing the way for Christian to finally confront Lamar, who desperately tries to justify every crime he committed, insisting everything he did was for the company. But Christian doesn't buy a single word of it, and calmly shoots him in the head before he can even finish speaking, bringing the conspiracy to an abrupt end. And with nothing left standing between them, the brothers quietly agree to meet again in a week's time before parting ways. While Mary Beth officially takes over King's position and receives her very first encrypted phone call from the Voice, Dana later receives a mysterious package containing the priceless original Jackson Pollock painting Christian secretly left behind for her. And in the movie's final reveal, we return to Harbor Neuroscience, where the mysterious Voice is finally revealed to be Justine, the nonverbal autistic girl Christian met there as a child, now using an advanced computer network funded by Christian's work to coordinate his missions from the shadows. And with another job already waiting somewhere beyond the horizon, Christian hitches up his trailer, drives off into the distance, and that's how The Accountant comes to an end. And real quick, if you've been enjoying this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe for more movie recaps like this, and let me know in the comments, do you think Christian's father was preparing him for the real world, or did he just destroy any chance Christian had at a normal life? And if you want another recap right now, check out the next video on screen because it's just as wild.